Hey everyone, either welcome back or welcome to my channel. And in today's video, I want to talk about why setting boundaries with IIH and migraines is extremely important. So before I get into any more details, time for the intro. I am one of the worst people for overdoing anything when I'm feeling good. It seems like whenever I have the opportunity to do a lot of things without a lot of pain, I take that opportunity and I run with it. The problem is when you do this, it leads to what I consider an actual positive feedback loop. So I will make a graphic, but essentially, you overdo it. This leads to more symptoms. Those symptoms that you get then result in a flare-up of symptoms or a migraine. That leads you to being unable to do anything, which leaves you to rest. And then you maybe catch up, and then you overdo it again, and the cycle just repeats. To prevent this from happening, I have to be extremely strict in the activities that I do, when I go to bed, when I get up. It's essentially like having a strict routine because you have no choice to have that strict routine. Most people adopt a routine because it's the most convenient thing to do when you have a job. But little do you know that I actually have a routine as well, even though I really don't have anywhere to be at, let's say, 8 o'clock in the morning. Living with a chronic illness means that I have to be extremely picky about when I go to bed, when I get up. I find that keeping those things the most consistent is the best option for me. I find that keeping my diet extremely consistent is important as well. Sometimes this can be because certain foods can actually be triggers. So when you eat something that you normally don't or is generally a treat, you can pay for it a little bit. Another one that's really important and that can be difficult to manage is going out. So when it comes to setting boundaries, sometimes we actually have to say no because going out will push us beyond that limit and it'll actually make it so that we're doing too much. That could be the overdoing it. I've talked about the importance of routines in previous videos, so be sure to check out those videos if you want more in depth about that particular one, because when it comes to what I do in a day and the reason why I get up and go to bed at the same time, that was explained in that particular video. Now, the sleep can be out of our control at times because when you have a lot of pain, it can be very difficult to sleep. You're not really going to sleep when you have a very high amount of pain. I also find that other symptoms too can make sleep difficult. When it comes to things like going out, this could be as simple as meeting somebody for a meal at lunchtime, or as simple as meeting your family out to go out for dinner. Now, when it comes to explaining why this can happen, this is, I think, where the spoon theory actually shines quite well. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the spoon theory, basically, at the start of every day, you're given a certain amount of spoons. These spoons represent a certain amount of energy that an activity can take or that you have to put towards that activity. Now, people with chronic illnesses are called spoonies because the amount of energy that we're given at the start of every day is never enough to cover everything that we could possibly do in that day. So, for example, something like going out can cost a lot of energy or a lot of spoons. Based upon what you've done in the day or been dealing with in the day, actually going out might end up costing you all of the spoons that you have left. When that's about to happen, you have to make a decision, or we have to make a decision on whether or not we decide to go out at that point. Because running out of spoons is a really bad thing. It can mean symptoms later on. It can mean that you get worse temporarily. There's generally a type of trade-off that comes when you go out when you shouldn't. When it comes to me, I find that lack of sleep or staying up too late can actually start a migraine cycle. And I've always been a person who has needed a lot of sleep. Even throughout when I was in my teenage years, when you can generally function off of a lot less sleep, anything less than 6 hours, and it's pretty difficult for me to function. Sleep can come at a premium sometimes, especially when some of the symptoms that I've talked about, things like the pulsing in the ears, the actual pain itself, having a migraine and being nauseous, all of those can interfere with sleep. What I eat is also extremely important. Not only because living with and having been diagnosed with IIH, I've got to keep my weight steady. But there's one part of this that people don't realize. I've actually found that some foods can be triggers for making me feel worse. I find that things with a lot of salt are not that good. Now, I do let myself have treats. This isn't something where I stick to a diet all the time. So my general rule is about 80-20. So 80% of the time, I try and stick to the diet that I should. 20% of the time, I allow myself to have treats like ice cream and cake and all of that because it's life. Knowing what foods can cause me problems and trying to avoid them as much as possible is a really, really important part of how I manage triggers. Those are the individual boundaries that I have and why I have them. But now I want to talk about why having boundaries in general is important. I honestly think in general the reason why setting boundaries is so important is because setting boundaries allows you to avoid problems as much as possible. It's basically better to set boundaries than it is to do too much and pay the price later. When you have boundaries, you're able to basically manage the things that are in your control so that you can prepare for the things that are out of your control. I'm going to get into that in a video in the middle of the month about that part of it because I think it will help people understand why I have to say no at some point. And for people who are kind of maybe at the start of this journey, I think learning how to say no is really important for yourself and your overall well-being. When you set boundaries and you say no to people, they probably will be upset with you, but if you explain to them, well, I may not be able to do that thing today with you, but let's try again on another day. When you overwork yourself, you end up making yourself feel worse. And honestly, too, if you overwork yourself, you can get to the point where you're not able to do anything because you're in so much pain. If you're enjoying my content, please feel free to subscribe. When you subscribe, you actually help me reach more people with IIH and migraines. Remember that it's completely free. It just allows us to increase awareness for IIH and migraines. When you're hitting that subscription button, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss any of my upcoming future content. If you enjoyed this particular video, be sure to give it a like. If you're watching this on Facebook or Instagram, be sure to like and follow. And as for now, that's it for today. Bye, everyone.